Story No. 1. There's something unsettling about night drives, isn't there? The world seems emptier, quieter, but somehow heavier. As the darkness stretches on, the road feels endless, and every shadow plays tricks on your mind. Tonight, I'll tell you a story of one such drive, one that still haunts me to this day. It was late, around 2 a.m., and I was driving back from a friend's house. The road I took was one of those old backcountry routes. No streetlights, no traffic, just me and my car slicing through the pitch-black night. My GPS had lost signal miles ago, but I figured I could navigate the familiar path home, or so I thought. About half an hour into the drive, something felt wrong. The air inside the car grew heavy, and the headlights seemed to dim slightly, as if the darkness outside was swallowing the light. That's when I saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road, barely visible in the fog. It was a woman, in what looked like a torn white dress. Her head was bowed, and her long hair obscured her face. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just someone stranded. Maybe her car broke down. I slowed down slightly, debating whether to stop. But before I could make a decision, she turned her head toward me, her face. It was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were pitch black, like void staring straight into my soul. I slammed on the gas and sped past her. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just someone stranded. Maybe her car broke down. I slowed down slightly, debating whether to stop. But before I could make a decision, she turned her head toward me. Her face, it was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were pitch black, like void staring straight into my soul. I slammed on the gas and sped past her. I skidded to a halt, the car just feet away from her. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, too terrified to move. She slowly lifted one arm and pointed toward the woods. I don't know why, but I felt an overwhelming urge to look, and that's when I saw it. Dozens of shadowy figures emerging from the trees, their movements slow and unnatural. They were coming toward me. I didn't think twice. I threw the car into reverse and floored it. My tires squealed as I backed away, the figures getting closer. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath coming in short gasps. When I finally turned the car around, I didn't look back. I just drove as fast as I could, my eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. When I hit the main highway, the oppressive darkness seemed to lift, but my heart didn't stop pounding. I didn't stop driving until I reached my driveway, and even then I couldn't bring myself to leave the car for a few minutes. I sat there, shaking, replaying the events in my mind. Had I imagined it? Was it exhaustion? Or was it something else? Something I can't explain. Since that night, I've avoided that road. I've heard others talk about strange occurrences there, disappearing hitchhikers, shadowy figures, even cars that break down inexplicably. Whatever I saw that night, I don't want to see it again. So the next time you find yourself driving alone at night, remember this: the road might be empty, but you're never truly alone. So, the next time you find yourself driving alone at night, remember this: the road might be empty, but you're never truly alone. Story No. 2. It was supposed to be an ordinary school outing. A simple visit to a nature reserve to learn about wildlife. Our group of 20 students, accompanied by 2 teachers, set off in high spirits. The day was bright and full of promise, but everything changed when we ventured into the woods. It started with little things: a sudden chill in the air, the eerie silence that replaced the usual forest sounds. Then, one of the students, Jessica, swore she saw someone watching us from behind the trees. The guide dismissed it as a trick of the light, but the unease spread quickly. As we went deeper, the path seemed to shift, leading us to a clearing that wasn't on the map. In the center stood an old, decaying cabin with symbols carved into its walls. Against our better judgment, we stepped inside. The air was heavy, suffocating, and the faint sound of whispers filled the room. When one of the teachers tried to leave, the door slammed shut on its own. We huddled together in terror as the whispers grew louder, almost deafening, until the guide screamed, "We need to go! Now!" Somehow the door gave way and we ran until we found the bus. No one spoke on the ride back, and the school cancelled all future trips to that reserve. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that whatever we encountered in those woods wasn't meant to let us leave. Story No. 3. Our history class had planned a field trip to an old battlefield-turned-museum, a place rumoured to be haunted. The teachers brushed off the stories, calling them local folklore, but as soon as we arrived, the air felt wrong, heavy, like the weight of something unseen pressing down on us. The guide began explaining the site's history, recounting tales of soldiers who fought and died there. As he spoke, several of us noticed a faint smell of gunpowder lingering in the air, even though the battles had ended centuries ago. We walked through trenches, now overgrown with moss, and paused at a memorial. That's when things started to unravel. One student, Eric, wandered off on his own, drawn to a tree with deep scars etched into its bark. He swore he heard whispers, faint voices calling his name. Moments later he screamed, clutching his arm. We rushed to him and saw 3 deep scratches, as if something, or someone, had clawed at him. The teachers tried to calm us, chalking it up to branches or brambles, but the guide looked pale. He hurried us back toward the bus, but the path seemed longer than it had been before. The whispers followed us, growing louder with each step. When we finally reached the bus, the guide refused to explain what had happened. The scratches on Eric's arm healed, but he said he still dreams of the battlefield, always hearing the same voices calling his name. The school never booked another trip to that site, and no one from our class ever wanted to return.